I suppose they can hear me. I'm just guessing because I really don't know.
Yeah, they can.
Okay, good. And I don't know why my picture doesn't show up there, but whatever. Okay. Anyway, today we got a lot of the. I didn't get on early enough this time. Next time, I'll get on the. Next time I'll get on the log in a little bit early if anybody else has another dog or show and tell, but it didn't happen today. Okay, we got, before we get back to Matlab, the fundamentals of Matlab, we have a few things to tell you. Share screen, share. And I want to go to, here's home, the screen, the home page is kind of like homeroom, right? When you were kids, you went to a homeroom to start the day, I guess. Maybe they still do that. And you know, you sat on your carpet square and then whatever. But it is common ground. Seriously, it's common ground. We can start here. So, we try to put the information, a lot of information. Some students ask, where do you find the course videos? There are course videos, YouTube. We've uploaded them there. Let me just say, and I might move this. We'll try not to move the information as much as possible. Some of these things are continually updated, so they have to change because the weekly things will change. But like, as far as email, please look at this because I'm getting a bunch of emails. For instance, SSD, and Varsha's in charge of that. I mean, I forwarded them to her, but with so many topics and so many emails, the chances are you'll get a quicker and more prompt and better response if you'll send. If it's a homework 1, you know, send it to Varsha. Homework 1, question, whatever. And also, like, to make sure that the SSDs get recorded properly and not all lost in different things. I was telling you, like, tons of them, and one of them last semester I didn't get in the system, and I don't know, the guy took it to the Supreme Court, you know, whatever. So if you will send the SSD, for instance, to Varsha, she's making a nice little spreadsheet, and we'll take care of it. I can't do. So please pay attention to this. I think we might need to move that up to the second or third thing on the list. Anyway, what I want to say before we get going with some other stuff is homework. Your first homework has been assigned and it's due. I know this looks like a lot of stuff here in the upcoming assignments, but there's a pro one. It's a practice quiz. It's worth taking. Course policy, not too bad. It's like, you know, is Professor Vic a good professor? No, he's supposed to say no, you know, things like that. And there's a Matlab Basics quiz, which is cool, and a workshop, which we're going to explain here in a minute. But and these two are both related, the homework. And let me just say a word about those. The homework has been posted, okay? Let's look. We'll click on that homework, and it connects you to the homework. Now, another way to get there, of course, and let me go back to I want to do something here. I want to, got a lot of logistics to get here home. I want to click this little glasses thing, because this is a lot of stuff you guys are not supposed to see. You got the little eye with the line through it, means no see. People, like, I'm really amazed that Canvas will let me expose that, like people's numbers and private info. I mean, I'm not going to, but I'm amazed that they'll let you if I wanted to. But there's a lot of stuff here you guys not supposed to, can't see. And if I do the little glasses thing, that supposedly is exactly what you guys are seeing. So let's go from that point of view. Now, much smaller list of things. Now, where you can find your assignments, you can go directly into the assignments, of course. And that's where they all come in. Homework 1, etc. Or we post them on upcoming assignments, whatever the thing is called. Let's see, where is it? Upcoming assignments. For instance, homework 1. And also, another thing about this, whatever, we discussed this is a difficult, logistics are difficult. We discussed that there's workshops and homeworks, for instance. Shouldn't they be due at different times so students don't just wait till the end of everything? Well, what happens is if something is due Sunday at 11:45 and something else is due at Thursday at 11 some other time, we're going to get like 500 emails. Oh, I thought it was the other. I mean, and not to insult y'all, but we've been there, done that last semester. We had like over twice the number of students, but the number of little logistical questions were just 500 of them at least. And you know, so what we've decided that whatever we have assigned that week is always due Sunday at 11:45, whether it be the workshop or the homework or the little quizzes. That way, we'll reduce about 500 emails of people saying, well, I thought the quiz was due at a different time. Okay. Anyway, everything is due Sunday at 11:45. Let's take a look at the homework. And there's a lot of logistics and description, but all of these came from questions that type of questions we received, you know, and this is stuff you need to know. There's 1 attempt, 1 hour limit, you know, etc. I mean, in a way, I'm halfway apologetic for all the stuff that you have to read, but each one of these has been a question that students ask us what they were and are relevant. There's nothing that's not relevant here. Anyway, what you do is you solve your homework problem. You solve the homework problems themselves. Okay, here's the PDF of the homeworks. And you can make it big. Okay, so there's the homeworks, and it's a good bit of stuff to do. Again, a lot of description because people ask us this stuff, so we put it in the description. And you need to know what the rules are too. I mean, what's expected of you. I mean, that's the thing. I just hated to have to read a whole bunch of stuff, but anyway, problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. I think it was about 5 problems here. So what you do is you do the problems as asked, and here it says this one by hand, the rest in Matlab, but follow the directions and do the problems, and then you'll have and you'll collect them as a single PDF. And you will submit your work to the thing. Then you'll take a quiz. For instance, the first thing is just matrix manipulation, important, but you know, maybe age-old stuff to some of you all, but really important for those that are not familiar. A, for instance, what are the dimensions of A? So what's the answer to that? The dimensions are the size of the matrix. It is a 1, 2, 3. It is, you do the rows first, it's a 3 by 2. What, et cetera, et cetera. The problems get more difficult than this, but you know, we ask questions. Okay, so now you solve the problem, you'll submit your work, and then you take the homework quiz. You'll have 1 hour. Now I'm in here, one thing I like is I'm in the student view, and they have this option called test student. So I can effectively look at this website as if I'm a student taking the test or doing the stuff. See, I'm called test. My name is test student. Okay, I know something I'll do right. So I begin my thing. Just to show you how to do this because it's the first time through. By the way, I know there's a lot of logistics here, but all the homeworks have the same structure. So once you figure out how to do homework 1, you probably don't even need to read a lot of this stuff again, although I would. But anyway, you start on the questions. You see, 1 is basically, do you want 17 points or not? I mean, you can click that one and say, I don't want it, but I wouldn't click that one and say, I do want it. It's just kind of like about half the points are just for free by clicking that. But 1, consider the 2 matrices consider the 2 matrices A and B from problem 1. We just looked. How many rows does A have? I don't mean to do too much of your homework for you, but okay. So that's kind of the way. Now, the questions do get more difficult. I'm not saying that, but I just wanted to show you the logistics of the test. Some of the questions down here, there's quite, I mean, like for instance, this one, which of the following are illegal? You should experiment with Matlab if you don't know. We should spend anyway, et cetera, et cetera. We get into some of the later problems. Consider problem, consider the projectile motion from problem 4. What is whatever? I won't do too much of this. And there you go. So you have a 20 question quiz. And the nice thing, I don't like this. I mean, I like to hand in your homework. I want to see a full engineering analysis. But look, this is what we've got. I didn't cause the disease. You didn't cause the disease, okay? So this is what we got. And we do have this medium, it's called Canvas, right? And one thing good about this is that now we don't have to collect paper. You put your answers in, you get an instantaneous response. It's instantaneously recorded, you know, and rather than some professor waiting however long to get papers back to you, you will get an instantaneous response. And that is nice. Students like that. Okay, there it is, homework. If you have logistics about that, or send them to Varsha, please. At this point now, Jason needs to explain to you about the Matlab Grader. Now, this is going to take a little bit of explanation. Once you learn how to do it, it's the same all semester. But at this point, let me get out of this, kill this thing. I want to get back. Ooh, I don't want this. Oh, crap, I want to get back to the meeting. I think if I stop share, I'm okay. There you go. Anyway, Jason's going to take some time here to explain to you about Matlab Grader. After that, I hope to get back to Matlab Basics. So Jason, go ahead. Tell us all about Matlab Grader. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so before we get into Matlab Grader, just want to clarify things a little bit more. And so hope everyone had a good weekend. Yesterday, we opened up the week 2 page and updated this block accordingly and the upcoming assignments tab. So if we go to the week 2 page, you'll see that it's the same stuff as last week. So if you already took these 2 quizzes last week, great, you don't have to do it. However, there is one new thing called Crimes Against Matrices, which is basically a collection of very aptly named crimes against matrices that we've seen, such as trying to add 2 matrices that are, have like wrong dimensions and stuff. It's a pretty quick read, and if you read this, I think it'll help you on the first problem of your homework. And then, once again, all these pages are live. So after today, we're going to replace this with the YouTube link, and after Wednesday, we're going to replace this with the link and so forth. So keep checking back on this page. So one thing to note is that there are 2 additional lectures. One is on Matlab Basics, which essentially reiterates everything that we're going to do this week. Now, you can watch these at any time because they're pre-recorded. So it's really a personal preference. When we gave these last semester, some people said that they like to watch it at the beginning of the week, and some people preferred to watch it at the end of the week as more of a recap. So experiment with that. It's, once again, personal preference, but you do have a pretty simple quiz based on the contents of this video. And this is, the quizzes aren't meant to be hard by any means. I think I took a look this morning. Some people have already done it, and everyone's done extremely well. It's like 6 questions that sort of checks if you were paying basic attention or not. So I wouldn't worry too much about those. Then when we get to the homework, I do think we call it a quiz, and it's sort of a misnomer, but we can't think of any better word for it. So when you think of homework 1 quiz, it's basically going to ask you to input the answers that you would have turned in on paper. So as Dr. Vic showed you in the video, the first problem is what's the rows and columns of A, which corresponded to the first problem on your homework. So I know some people get like extreme test anxiety, myself included, but I think it helps if you don't think of this necessarily as a quiz, but more of a medium where you would input your answers. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And then when we get to Matlab Grader, first off, everyone should have gotten an invitation mid last week. If you still don't have one, I know some people added the class over the weekend and didn't have a chance to email me. Please do so after class. So when we go into Matlab Grader, which is its own separate website, you should have gotten an invitation to this. Hopefully this workshop 1 page looks familiar. You probably don't see this workshop 2 and 3 tab yet because it's not open yet. But basically, the reason why we're using Matlab Grader is because it's a nice platform that gives you instant feedback. So you can type in some code, press submit, and Matlab Grader will tell you if you're right or wrong. And that's a really useful tool for the problems that we give you, because if you have a wrong answer, you can immediately go back and check what you did wrong. So as an example, for this week's workshop, which was opened last week after I sent out the invitations and is due this Sunday at 11:45, not 11:59 or not 12:01, then you guys have technically 6, but really 5 problems, because this first problem here is already pre-solved. So I'm just going to go over sort of the interface of this and how to use it. So I'm not going to do the first problem. I'm actually going to start with the second problem because I think it's a better representation. So first off, in here, you have this prompt, and then you can see what the question's asking you. So you are given X and Y, and you need to calculate these two variables, A and B. One sort of little semantic thing about Matlab Grader is that if we tell you to name your variable something, it must be called exactly that. And the reason is when the test cases run, the test cases will look for this variable called A and this variable called B. So if you write your code and you name a variable AA instead of A, then even if you have the right numerical answer, this will be graded as wrong because you used a different variable name. So please make sure you're reading all the instructions carefully and you adhere to whatever variable names we prescribe. Now, when we get into the script box, what you'll notice is that it looks like there are two shades. So these first two lines sort of have this grayish background, and then from lines 3 through 9, it has a white background. And what that means is that if you see a gray background, you cannot edit it. So you can't delete things. I'm trying to type right now, and I can't. So sometimes we'll give you instructions that we want to lock, or sometimes we'll put things up top and we'll give you a variable that you have to use that we will lock so that you can't change it. And so here we just have your basic header with the instruction of do not hard code your answers. And I'll go into that more in a minute. But then from lines 3 through 9, they have the white background. So you can edit this at ease. You can put whatever strings of letters and numbers. Basically, this is where you would write your editable code. Note that we already gave you a couple lines. We already predefined x equals 2 and y equals 5 to help you, so that now all you have to do is sort of copy and paste these two formulas in here. Now, we can press this run script button down here, and what this will do is it'll run the code contained in this box. So I'm just going to type a equals 1, and let's see what happens if we press the run script button. Then we see the output. This is basically what, this is Matlab Grader's equivalent of the command window output. So you see we have a equals 1, and that's because we don't see the x equals 2 and y equals 5 because there's a semicolon here and here. So these lines are suppressed. And if we wanted to unsuppress it, we could remove the semicolon, press run script again, and now we see the x and the y. So this is just a quick way for you to check if your code compiles. What's more useful is if we scroll down a little bit further, there are two buttons, something that says run pretest and submit. Running a pretest, and you'll see that there are two test cases in the assessment here. Test A is what we call a pretest. And in a pretest, you are allowed to see whatever code we give you. So in this case, you can see that you can see the exact code that we use on the back end of Matlab Grader to determine if your answer is wrong or right. When we give you a pretest, which we try to do because we want to be transparent about giving you the answers on workshops, you'll be able to see most of the code. You don't need to necessarily understand what the code does, but I guess for transparency's sake, what this is saying is assert is basically a flag for Matlab Grader that is basically true or false. And if assert evaluates to true, then you pass the test, get your green check mark, and move on. If assert evaluates to false, then that means you have an error in your code somewhere. And oh, by the way, all these problems on Matlab Grader have infinite attempts. So you can keep on trying as many times as you want. And then here is sort of the is equal command. And I'm not going to go too far into it because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but this basically checks if the two inputs to is equal, which is the variable a, and the number 1.6 are equal to each other. So basically what this is saying is that if you do the math, a turns out to be 1.6. So if you do a equals 1.6 here, then you'll get the first test case correct. And if you do something like a equals 1.4 or something wrong, this string incorrect a will be printed, indicating that you have an incorrect answer. Now you can't see the code for checking the b, checking whatever value b has. Sometimes we'll give you what we call a hidden test, which is what this is. We try not to do that because once again, we want to show you guys what the answers are so you can adjust your code accordingly. When you press the run pretest button, it will only run the first test, in this case check A, because check A is indicated as a pretest. But when you press the submit button, it runs every test, pretest or hidden. So I'm just going to press submit here. Let's see what happens. So we said a equals 1.4, even though the answer turns out to be 1.6. So it's clear that we got it wrong. And then we didn't have a value for b at all, so that's wrong as well. So one thing to note, we are explicitly telling you that a equals 1.6. However, when you write your code, you should not do a equals 1.6 in here. This is what we call hard coding, and anyone who is caught will essentially get a 0 for this problem. And the reason for that, even though it's strict, is because we want to build good coding habits. So let's say you need to use this variable a in your future code 50 more times, which over the course of the semester might actually be pretty realistic. Well, if you say a equals 1.6 here, but then you have to redefine a bunch of times throughout your code, you're going to have to change this number however many times, and that's going to be a lot. Whereas even if you have different values for x and y, then a is obviously going to change, and b as well. So if you change x and y, a will have to change, but you don't have to change your code if you do, if you type in the formula, whatever it is, and just leave it be. So once again, play around with that, and also notice that we are using a and b, which are the exact variables, once again, that we are telling you to use. So I could do AA equals 1.6, which is, the correct numerical answer, but stored in the wrong variable. And this will be wrong because Matlab Grader cannot find this variable called A. Right? So one piece of advice that we tell everyone is to not do your coding in Matlab Grader. We've had a lot of problems in the past where people would type their code, write like 50 or 60 lines, and then they go do something else. They go do like another homework assignment for another class. Then they close their internet browser without having submitted the code. And when they open up the browser again and log back onto Matlab Grader, your code is gone. And if that happens, then there's nothing we can do. Now, of course, if you submit it, so if you submit your code, it will be stored sort of in the cloud forever, and then you can go back and see all your previous solutions, so you won't be necessarily losing your code there. Another downside of coding in Matlab Grader is that you don't have access to the workspace. So what we're giving you, it says, if you go back to the instructions, if we go into Canvas, Files, Workshops, and Workshop 1, you'll see that we have given you 5 templates that you can use. So I've taken the liberty of downloading them, and if you open them in Matlab, this is sort of what you see. And you can see that the format is exactly the same. So all I did to make this was I just copied and pasted this script box code over here. And then I copied and pasted all the pretests. So I just went copy and paste and then plopped it down there. And then, so here you can type out your A equals 1.6, whatever, and then you can run it. And then you can get your answer. Or we can do AA, which is wrong. And then we're going to get the same error message because this is looking for the variable called A, but it can't find it. And so here's sort of what I mean about working the workspace. So let's say we hard code an incorrect answer, A equals 1.2. When you run the code, it's going to fail, and you're going to get the corresponding error message. The utility of the workspace is really good and really undervalued. So when you go into the workspace, you can see a list of all the variables and what values they hold. So just from a cursory glance, we can see that A holds the value 1.2, even though it should hold the value 1.6. So this is a really, really valuable debugging tool. You can also double click on any of the variables in the workspace, and I'll bring up more of an expanded view. So for example, if we did A equals 1 to 10, which creates a vector from 1 to 10 in increments of 1, obviously this is also incorrect, and we get the error message. But we can go into the workspace, double click, and now you can see what values A holds. So in future problems, when we're going to ask you to create a vector of numbers, not just a single scalar like 1.6, but a vector. You can go into the workspace and you can say, okay, well, the first entry is right, but the second entry is wrong. The second entry, the question might have asked this to be 4 or something, but my answer is 2. So there's something wrong there. And later on in the course, when you have to create 500 element vectors, you can scroll down and say, okay, well, the 15th element, the 15th through 500th elements are correct, but the first 14 are wrong. So please use the workspace to your advantage. And Matlab Grader does not have the workspace. It'll just tell you if you're right or wrong. So as these problems get more complex, then it's more important to be doing these problems in the templates that we give you, because you can easily facilitate debugging. And then that's about it. So when it comes to submission, the biggest thing to note is to always press the submit button. There's some weird quirk where if you only press the run pretest button, it doesn't save your score. But when you press the submit button, it'll save your score. And then once you get the green check marks, once you get all the test cases right, once again, infinite attempts, try as many times as you want, then you can move on to the next problem, or you can do it in a different order, doesn't matter. But once you get all the problems correct, you're done. You do not have to submit anything to Canvas. We'll do that for you. Matlab Grader will give us a score report once this thing closes. And so we download that and we have to manually transfer your grades into Canvas. So the last thing I want to say about Matlab Grader is that there are some weird bugs on the back end where your Canvas score, when we import it, might be different than what your Matlab Grader score shows. So the most common case is when you get all the problems right, you did everything on time, 100%, but then on Canvas, your score might show up as like an 83 or an 85 or something. And so if that happens, then it's likely because Matlab Grader miscalculated or something, which actually happens fairly often. So if you find that your Canvas score does not reflect your Matlab Grader score, then send me an email and I'll look back through your solutions and try to figure it out. I think this happens if you submit too close. If you submit within an hour of the deadline, I think Matlab Grader scores can get a little jumbled up. So that's just my spiel on that. It has happened before. I think it happens like once every 2 or 3 workshops, and we frankly don't know why. So I just want to make you aware of that in case something goes wrong in your Canvas gradebook. So, oh, and by the way, this is all Matlab. So you're still using the same syntax and it's still the same programming language, just in a slightly different form. It's in an online form. So as we progress throughout the class, I hope that you guys will come to appreciate this, come to appreciate, using things like the workspace and testing out infinite submissions, and really treat this as a learning experience. So next week, once we get into function M files, I'm going to give sort of another overview because this interface will change just a little bit. So hope you guys enjoy.
All right, thank you, Jason. And between the homework and the Matlab Grader, I do appreciate it. It's a lot of logistics and rules thrown at you, but it's going to be the same next week. Like Matlab Grader will be the details of how to use it in the 3rd week. So it's kind of like you learn that once, and then you just can concentrate on the problems. And Jason did a nice job of explaining kind of how to do it. And don't hesitate to email if you have questions. All right, I want to get back to share screen. Share screen, share, I guess. I don't even know if I have Matlab open. I want to continue with my intro to Matlab. This is what I started last time. By the way, as far as making your code pretty and readable, if you put a %, that means it's a comment. If you put a double %, that means it's not only a comment, but it's its own section. And you can see whenever there's a double %, it forms its own little box like in there, you see, and you go to the next one. That's why I put a double % when I started sort of a new topic in there. Should I talk about the publish right now? Okay, let me just say this one thing. You can run this code. Look, and this is what we ended up with last. This is exactly where we were last time. Referencing variables. Let's run this thing, see where we're at. You got to change the folder. Okay. There we go. A little bit hard, the window can be a little bit hard to read. And what we were doing is we were working on things, and once we figured them out, we commented them out. So like the basic operations, didn't have to keep looking at it. The last thing we were working on was this matrix A, a 1, 2, 3, like that. And we were referencing variables. That's the last topic I was talking about. How do you get an individual variable about? And you see there. An easier way to read this is with this publish command, okay? Now try not to go too fast. Up here in MATLAB's, what do you call this, index box, text box? What do you call the tablet? Anyway, up here you find something called publish. Everybody see where that is? Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And there's a command called publish. Okay, let's do that. What it gives you when you say publish is a nicer, more aesthetic view of your work. And if you, when you submit your MATLAB code, you're supposed to submit a PDF, and we need to submit the published versions because they look so much nicer and are readable than the just in the command window. And you can see in this last thing we did, this last section called matrices. And you see when you have a double percent, it forms a natural section for you, etc. Anyway, you can see the last thing we did. We put A as to that matrix. There it is. And the topic there was referencing individual variables. And since we're on there, let's just make sure you all realize that. A21 is row 2, element 1. That's like a 4. You can see that. A rows 2 to 3, column 2. Rows 2 to 3, that's the column. That should be a 5 and an 8. And row 3, wildcard, all of it should be the 7, 8, 9, because it's row 3, all of it 7, 8, 9. There you go. But you can see, in addition to the critical thing, which is how to use MATLAB, this publish thing makes it look pretty, and you can take all the comments off this thing. So this is the way to do your work here. And you can kill that, go back to your thing. I think if, let's put this in here. I'm going to put those there. I believe in the publish, if your first double percent is like this and you don't put any other commands in there, it'll call that the title of the entire work. Let me try that one more time. There. If you put the double percent on the first thing, but then nothing, after it, it'll call the double percent thing the main title. And that's the way we want, because the main title and the main purpose of this is Introduction to MATLAB. And that's our main title. Then our sub it finds the main contents. And the things we did was we did basic operations, etc. So it makes it looks real nice. And this would be the way to submit your thing, okay? All right. With that, let's get on to new material, matrices. Double percent, let's start a new thing. Matrix operations.
Wait, but before we go on, I would like to just ask one thing about the publish functions. So after we've done publish and we've gotten to that window, how do we get from there to having a PDF saved?
Okay, how do you do that? Publish, that's a good question. There it is.
You can just hit the printer icon on the top left.
Oh yeah, just print the PDF.
There we go. I was looking for something. There you go. Print. And within print, that's a good, obviously you're supposed to submit this as a PDF, so that's really relevant question. Is you can actually hard code it, but there's the first thing in there is an Adobe PDF, and that will submit it to your, these things, I was looking, my eyesight's so bad, I need like a magnifying glass here. So you are talking to an antiquated old man, but there you go. Thank you.
So can I jump in for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen real fast. Another way I like to do is set the default publish option to a PDF. So up here, if you don't press the publish button, but if you press this drop down and go to edit publishing options, you can set the output file format as right now, I think the default is HTML, which is what Dr. Vic has. But if you set it to PDF, and then you can set your output folder or whatever, you can publish this. And then every time from now on you press the publish button, it'll automatically create a PDF like so. And so I can close out and then I can publish this again. And then I get the same PDF in Adobe Reader or whatever. So that's just another way of automatically publishing it too. I think it will look slightly different. I noticed that Dr. Vic's had some sort of like orange text up here and stuff, and this is just mainly black and white. But as long as everything is there, then that's fine. And then there's also some like really weird bugs where when you have a plot and you press publish, sometimes the plot doesn't show up and we don't know why. But those plots do need to be included in your homework. And if you go back and read like the homework formatting and plot formatting guidelines, we have a couple workarounds that you can use.
Even more annoying to me is in the publish command with plots, and you go to the next section, new plot, it repeats the old plot when you don't want to. So it's not wrong. It just, for the life of me, I can't figure out why it repeats the same plot twice sometimes when I don't want it. But anyway.
It sounds almost like what we're experiencing here is emergent behavior within MATLAB.
Yeah, maybe, school of fish trying to figure out what to do here. Anyway, you'll get used to it, and don't be bashful. Like pipe up and ask questions. We want to get to MATLAB, we want to get to physics and all that stuff, but you got to submit your work. So this discussion is necessary. I wish we could just hey, you know how to do this, and let's get into numerical computing. Anyway, let's go back to MATLAB. Okay. Do they see this? No, I don't know. How do I get back?
I think you need to start.
Oh, Zoom again? How do I start Zoom again? What the hell am I doing here?
It should
Oh,
be
share
like,
screen. I gotta go back
Yeah.
to share screen?
yeah.
I gotta go back to share screen. Okay, all right.
Yeah, now I can see it.
I'm a little slow. But I make up for it by being really, really stupid, okay? So it helps, okay. But have fun doing it, okay? Really slow and stupid, just have fun with it. All right, matrix operations. You obviously can do all the standard operations. For instance, you can form a matrix, B equal, I don't know, just so we know what it is, 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And all the standard operations work, B plus B. Let's see what that does. We test every line of code, right? So we have to continually look at this. And does B plus B make sense? It added things, the 1 and the 1 is a 2 and a 4, stuff like that. It added element by element. Now, so it does the standard arithmetic processes. It also does the arithmetic process in the standard hierarchy. That is, if you don't put parentheses around things, exponentiation goes first, multiply and divide go next, addition and subtraction go next. It doesn't hurt to put extra parentheses around your longer expressions to make sure that the arithmetic is being done. And if you have a bunch of pluses, if you have a bunch of the same hierarchy, like a multiply and divide, it goes left to right. So that's pretty much standard on pretty much every computer I've seen. But now there's an issue here. This is matrix laboratory. And when it comes to multiply and divide and certain of the operations, let's do this. B times B. What do you think will come out of there? Like when you added them, it added the first 2, 4, 6, 8. So when you multiply B times B, what do you think will come out of there? Well, it's public, we can find out. We can always press the button and find out, right? And let's go back to make sure we know which matrices we're dealing with. This will be matrix C equals this one. D equals that one. So when it's published, when it's put out in the published thing, we know exactly which matrix we're dealing with. The C matrix probably makes sense. How about the D matrix? How did it come up with the D matrix? Well, B times B is what it is it's full matrix multiplication. That is the rows times the columns. So the first element is going to multiply, the first time is going to be row 1 times column 1. So it's going to be a 1 plus a 1 plus a 6, a 7, etc. It's full matrix operation. However, let's comment on this one. Comment. This is full matrix multiplication. For instance, the first element should be row 1 times column 1, etc., etc. However, there's some times where you want to do element by element multiplication. Okay. And, it's okay to be, you hope your team of instructors are pretty good with Matlab, and, I've been using it for a long time. Obviously, Jason and Varsha are very good with it. But you hope that, but also the experience of having taught it. And I can tell you, of having taught it, I've got hundreds of questions about the difference between full matrix multiplication and element by element. Once you get it, it's no problem. But after 500 emails, I feel like I should talk about it a little carefully. Okay. Element by element means you just take you take each element, multiply. So 1 times 1 is a 1. 2 times 2 is a 4. 3 times 3 is a 9. So element by element is going to should give you a 1, 4, 9, 16 matrix. So let's try it. Now, how do you distinguish it? A, B, C, D, I don't know, D2. I don't know. Let's call that multiply D1, D2. D2 then. But you've got to distinguish it. MATLAB doesn't know. It can't listen to my words. It thinks multiply is clear multiply. Well, B, the way you tell MATLAB to do element by element is put a dot with the operation. Dot times B. The dot in front of it means element by element compared to full. Let's run it and see. I think you can define to the students element by, they ask me, what is it? I say it's element by element multiplication, but professor, I don't know I don't know what that is. I mean, what do you mean? So nothing like an example, right? I always kid you guys like, nobody needs an example. I'm of course kidding and be very sarcastic because everyone needs an example and everyone loves an example. So here we go. Let's publish it, see what happens. So do you see the difference between full matrix multiplication and element by element? My technique, like when I'm learning MATLAB, I make good use of MATLAB's documentation, doc, this, that, the other thing. I, of course, Google things. I don't probably Google things as much as you all. I grew up when I needed to figure something out. I took a blank piece of paper and tried to figure it out because, I'm a very, very antiquated old man. The modern kids your age, when they can't know something, they Google it, just Google that thing, I don't know. I just always love figuring it out myself. But, and that's the example. But nevertheless, figured out myself and try to run some examples myself so I understand it. So once I run this example here, I think it's clarified in my mind, what is the difference between multiply and dot multiply? All right. And going back there, let's try D3, let's put a line in there. D3 equals B dot plus B. I'm not even just, now addition by definition is a element by element thing. I'm not, this might be an error. I haven't really tried this one. It doesn't make the sense. Let's try it. Error, we got an error. Okay. Error, da, 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 because it's invalid to use the dot with the plus because plus by definition is element by element, right? So let's comment this one out. Oops, not a dollar, it's a thing, what do you call it thing? Percent of thing. Yeah. Not legal. Oh, I got a dollar in there. Hard to make a dollar these days. Element by element. Now, it's not just the divide, of course, and the divide command needs special discussion because matrix division is not quite so obvious, and the left division or the right division is the right division thing is going to be one of the main topics. But D3 exponentiation makes a difference, right? Where we could do B. Recap it, guys. Case it's B dot exponent. The caret thing as always is exponentiate, but let's do this cubed. So this should be element by element cubing dB. So the cube of 1 is 1. The cube of 2 is 2. 4 is 8. 27. 64. So if this is doing what I think it should do, it should be 1, what I just said there. Let's try it. Notice no errors. We got through the error thing. 1, 8, 27, 64. Also, so what we're learning here is this is vital. I mean, this multiply or dot multiply, element by element or full matrix is absolutely critical to making MATLAB work correctly, what you want it to do. But what I'm showing you here is a lifestyle. That is, could you explain to me element by element? Yes, I could, but I'd rather just say a word about it, but mostly spend most of my time showing you a demonstration on what it is. Because this is what I do when I'm when I'm first learning a software, or even now when I learn a new command, and I'm learning new commands all the time, MATLAB. I'll sit in my office or whatever, and I experiment. I can't prove this to you. I don't have films of me sitting there experimenting, but I experiment like I'm doing here with you guys and to see what it does. Now, after all these decades, I know this, that I didn't need to experiment. But even now, as I learn a new MATLAB command, I do what I'm doing here. I don't just read the words, I do my own little experiments to make sure. And then I clearly understand what is the difference between full matrix multiplication, element by element, or element by element exponentiation, and things like that. And I do this with all the commands in there. Okay. Now let me just we'll start on the next thing. I know, fortunately, next period, we can spend the whole 50 minutes doing this, but let me just do one more thing here.
Okay, Doctor, there is a question.
Yeah.
That you might wanna-
Okay.
So, when would you use the element by element compared to the full matrix?
So a question evidently, when do you use full matrix multiplication time compared to element by element? Okay, good question. Matrix building. I tell you what, in that regard, let me, I'm so confused here. Methods of mechanical, no, methods, where the heck is our course? Anyway, let me try something else. I'm trying to find the homework. I'm trying to quickly get to the homework.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get to it. I guess I can't get to it. Damn it. If I could get to your homework, I could give you a good example of it. me get back to the website. Okay, how do I get back to the website?
Click on the, yeah, you can click on that,
That's the wrong course.
but you can click on courses.
Oh,
over
yeah,
there.
then,
So
yeah,
go to
okay, yeah.
courses.
Actually,
Courses.
I got to get out of student view. Leave student view. Now I can get to it.
So your courses are over here.
Yeah, there we go. I got this. Okay, can everybody see the, can they see this now? Or did I lose everything? Okay.
Nah.
No. All right. I want to answer this question. It's a good question. I want to answer this question, even if it takes a couple of extra minutes. Assignments. Let's go to your assignments. And I want to relate it to the assignment. Okay, homework 1. Here it is, homework 1. Or I guess it would have been easier to get it directly from the homepage. But here we go. All right. Problem 3 in your homework. Can I see problem 3? Okay, problem 3 in your homework. Force is K times X. Here's like a linear spring where the more you displace it, the more force you get. And here's the energy. Here's the spring's potential energy, because spring energy gets stored and released in a spring, okay? Now, here are some springs. Spring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's the force and the X. So what you're going to need to do this homework, and this not only is that a good question, but I can maybe help you with the homework, is to do this homework, since you can't just read a data file, you probably have to do the laborious pain of typing these in. You have to put F equals a vector of 15 ... of 6 numbers. Not too bad to type in. And you have to put in a vector of X equal to those numbers. Sorry about the hand typing, but after that, you can go to town on Matlab. Okay. You're sharing. I want to get them back to Matlab. There's Matlab. Oh, God. What are they saying? All right.
Yeah.
So back at this section here. Let's say you have the force equal to, and and rather than type all the numbers in, I'm going to go say 1 through 6. There's 6 numbers in there. And let's put the X equal to 0 through 10, 0 through 5 or something. We need 6 numbers in each. Okay. Okay. So I've created, I'll publish this, sorry. Now, these are the wrong numbers, but I've created numbers. I've created a force vector. You'll have to fill in the correct ones, and there's the X. You'll have to fill in the correct ones. Okay, there they are. Now, how do you form X? U is KX squared, right? Or it's 1/2 KX squared.
U is 1/2 kx squared, yeah.
Okay, 1/2. How do you form X squared? Well, I guess I shouldn't do all this for you, but what the heck. U equals K dot. Now, in this case, you need dot times, and you need X dot exponentiate. What the hell am I doing their homework for them? Anyway,
I mean, you're really not. You haven't shown us how to define K. I'm not asking you to. I'm just pointing that out.
yeah, 1/2 KX squared. Oh, I put the.
No, that was X, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next line, you can just type K is equal to just.
K was the first line, not F, right?
No, that should be it.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do something totally different. I'm going to do F times X squared. So this is related, but it's not the correct answer to your homework. But here are 2 vectors, F and X, and I'm going to show you how to do this. You want, F has 6 numbers, X has 6 numbers. You want to multiply them and exponentiate them element by element. So let's see what happens. And that's what happens. Does this make sense? The first one is F times x squared. The next one is f times x squared, that's 2. The next one is f, that's 3 times 4, that's 12. See how we get those numbers there? So that should help you with your homework, but it's just the wrong details, okay? And it's an example of what happens there. Now notice, this should be an error because if I do f with 6 numbers and x with 7 numbers, things surprise you sometimes. I'm expecting an error. I don't know, maybe it did something. Yeah. Matrix dimensions must agree. Error in this thing here. See, I'm trying to, and any MATLABber, this is one of the most common errors you're going to get. Matrix dimensions don't agree. And, you know, all of us that have used MATLAB for years have gotten that message many, many times because, oh, yeah, that's right, I didn't do whatever. In this particular case, the dimensions don't mind. F has 6 things, X has 7, and the last poor element doesn't have a mate. Isn't that sad? Don't you feel bad for that last element of X? It doesn't have a mate. MATLAB feels so sorry for it, it puts you on an error. But you see why, they don't match up, okay? So I would suspect in your MATLAB career, in your lifetime, this matrix dimension thing not matching, you're gonna get many, many times. I certainly have. Okay, we're gonna pick this up. I think we don't have much logistics more next time. I think we can get a full day of MATLAB next time. Anyway, we'll see you all then. We'll stick around a few minutes if anybody has questions.
Thanks, Professor.
You're quite welcome. My pleasure.